Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Moving Markets Podcast. It is Wednesday, November 19th, 2025. I'm doing something right now that I have not done in quite some time. I'm actually recording this before the market opens on Wednesday morning. And I'm doing that very specifically because I'm not going to be around most of the day today. I'm not going to be in front of the computer for the bulk of the day. In fact, I'm not even sure I'm going to be able to jump on and look at the close of the market. So this is going to be a really short podcast, and the primary purpose of doing this morning and getting this information out prior to the market opening is so that I can maybe instill with our members, with the Safe Option Strategy members, a little bit of a calming thing, because today, whatever happens today in the market, the reports that we're going to get after the market closes, specifically from Nvidia, is going to determine, I believe, what happens for the rest of this week and all of next week. There are other earnings taking place. There are other things that are going to happen, but everything is going to come down to what Nvidia does and how the market reacts to what Nvidia does. Most people believe, and I count myself in this category, most people believe that Nvidia is going to beat their numbers on top line, on bottom line. They're going to have a very positive earnings report. It's going to be impressive in terms of their revenue, their profits, their overall sales. But I think the environment right now is going to make it so incredibly difficult for anything Nvidia says or does to please the investment community. And what I mean specifically by that is it almost doesn't matter how good their numbers are, and it almost doesn't matter how well they guide for the next quarter and the next full year. I think there are too many people that are too many traders, too many investors, too many market managers, investment managers, brokers, dealers, hedge fund managers. I think there are simply too many of them that are going to look for any little teeny tiny chink in the armor and use it as an excuse to continue to sell. I have a chart here of Nvidia that include the 50-day and the 200-day moving average, and you can see really easily on this chart that Nvidia, the 5-day moving average is on the verge of crossing below the 50-day moving average, and the price of the stock is really testing this 180 mark. If Nvidia breaks below 180, maybe they hold up at 170. There's a little bit of support right there, but I honestly think they are probably coming down to 150. Whoops, I drew the line at 140. Sorry, I'm going to fix that. That's not where I wanted the line. I think they're probably coming down right here to where the 200-day moving average is. And, little tiny test of support right there, little bit of resistance that it showed right there. But both of those visual lines of support resistance show really close right now to where the 200-day moving average is. And I think it's going to be difficult at best for Nvidia to not come down and test that 150 mark, and in fairly short order. It's sad to me that I believe wholeheartedly a company could show really good numbers and still have everybody in such a pessimistic place that they want to sell and push the stock down. All of the conversation over the last week and a half to 2 weeks that we've seen this big sell-off. It's been in Nvidia, it's been in the whole market really. And when I say big sell-off, right now we're down in the S&P and the NASDAQ. I'm going to go with the S&P specifically. We're down, I want to say, about 4% from the most recent high. Recent high right there, 69.20. Let me do some quick math. I haven't done this previously. 69.20 recent high. The recent low was yesterday. It finished off that low, but the low yesterday was 65.74. And if you divide that by the 69, that's a difference of three. That means the S&P from 2 weeks ago is down 300 and some odd points. If you divide that by the 69.20 that it got to, right now we're down about 5%. That's all. In fact, that's almost exactly 5% from this spot right here to where it touched yesterday. Let me draw my lines again. From right here where it was at its highest point 3 weeks ago to where it touched down to yesterday is 5%. I gotta believe there's another 5% to the downside coming, and that would put the S&P right here near this 6,400, maybe as low as the 6,200 mark. And I think there's a good chance we hit that. I think we get into that 8 to 10% correction territory. And I think it happens quickly. I think a continuation of these 4 days in a row of selling, I think you get 4 more days or 5 more days that are just as much, um, plus a little bit. And then you're looking at this time next week when we're celebrating Thanksgiving, the first couple of trading days, the half day after on Friday, the first trading day of the following week, which puts us into December 1st. I think those are going to be some rough days unless everyone gets that little bit of FOMO going and saying, I don't want to miss out on the dip like I have done so many times. You're going to have people say, I missed out on buying on this dip. I missed out on buying on this dip. And then we had this great run. I missed this one. Then we had a nice little run. I missed this one. We had a great run to the upside. I missed this one. We had a great run to the upside. You might get enough people that do that with some really good news from Nvidia that they say, wow, this is more than enough of a dip. I don't want to miss out and I want to push this thing higher. I hate being a pessimist. Anybody that's traded with me for a while and followed what I do for a while, I don't like being a pessimist. I try to be optimistic. I try and find the good stuff that's going on. I think it's going to be so incredibly difficult for Nvidia to beat expectations and perform above, so far above what people want to see that they can't help but buying. I think Nvidia is going to be down tomorrow and Friday. I think it's going to drag the whole market down farther. And I think we're going to look at a 10% correction before the bleeding stops. And I think we'll get it fairly soon. By the end of next week, the first part of the following week. Then after that, if there's any hope following that of getting a Santa rally, which I know me and everybody else that trades is hoping we get a Santa rally, and we're already kind of behind on what that usually entails. We don't want to see it happen just in the last 2 trading weeks of December. We like to see it more than that. But the other thing that is going to be so incredibly challenging for this market is right now the uncertainty of what the Fed is going to do when they meet, and the fact that they don't meet until the 10th. We've got to wait. Not only do we have this situation going on with Nvidia and what that's going to do to the whole market, but then on top of that, we have to wait until the Fed does something. And right now, I cannot remember a time. I honestly cannot remember a time where the Fed fund tool that I'm on right now has been this evenly split on what people think is going to happen. You're talking 50.9% think there's going to be a rate cut, and 49.1% think we're going to hold. And I don't recall a time when it's ever been that evenly split. The Fed doesn't always do what the expectation is. There have been times when this has been up in the 60 or 70 range. This has been down around 30 or 40, and the Fed doesn't follow what this shows, although those times are awfully rare. This tool happens to be right way, way, way more often than it's wrong. But I can't recall a time where it was so evenly split. Now, we are going to get some jobs data tomorrow. And even though it's lagging jobs data, The jobs data could very possibly paint a picture where this starts to crystallize, where this starts to go way up and this goes down, or vice versa. This begins to go way up and this begins to go way down. You could have a couple of your Fed um, governors speak or make comments or put out some public statement where you start getting some clarity. As of right now, this the leading indicators we're supposed to, even this is not going to be up to date because we're supposed to get some jobs data tomorrow uh, that is delayed. It's going to be the jobs data, I believe, from September, not from October. And really poor jobs data could make the Fed say, yeah, we have to cut rates. That could give us some clarity. And that could be something that boosts the market. But if that jobs data comes in at or what is expected, or if you get a couple of these Fed govs that say, you know what, we don't think there should be a cut, or we do think there should be a cut. You've got John Williams speaks tomorrow. Lori Logan speaks tomorrow. They could say something about how much they think there should be a cut or how much they think there shouldn't be a cut. And if you start hearing ahead of that December 10th decision-making day, if you start hearing a majority of your Fed govs saying they believe there should be a cut, the market could rally around that. So we may not have to wait until December 10th, but a combination of the Nvidia report this afternoon, the jobs information in the morning, and then the comment by a couple of these Fed govs over the next week to possibly bring some clarity about no rate cut or a rate cut. They're not going to raise rates. I don't think you'll get anybody thinking they're going to raise rates, but the possibility of a rate cut improving, those could be any one of those things or a combination of them could be your catalyst towards a Santa rally. But if you get that big sell-off following Nvidia's report, if you get jobs data that does not help solidify a picture on rate cuts, or if you get a few of these Fed govs saying, I don't know if we can get a rate cut because we're too far behind on the data, then what you have is probably a correction and maybe a slight recovery, but not one that you could really call a Santa rally. So hold tight through the day today. Tomorrow morning, we will probably be making some adjustments. If you haven't done it already, I'm not even going to be able to send this out because I'm up against a clock on some things I've got to do today. So I hope everybody has a chance to listen to this. On the open trades you have on Palunteer, on SPY, take a look at either or both of those of just adding a December 5th bear put spread that starts a little bit out of the money. Don't pay a lot for it. Don't go out way far in time. It's easier to adjust one that's going in the money and roll it out and down and improve your profit potential on it. But I think it's important that you probably do something to hedge just a little bit. Even just a long put on or bear put spread on the Nasdaq or on the S&P to sort of hedge your whole portfolio. You can reverse it really quickly or turn it into a bull put spread if the market really rallies strong tomorrow and Friday. But be prepared for what's happening. We already have a bear put in place on Nvidia, so that's the one that we need to protect the most. But don't get too caught up in what's going on today. Let's see what happens with Nvidia and see where things are likely to go afterwards. That's kind of the position that we find ourselves in right now. So have a great day, everybody. I will be online tomorrow morning. I'll be on Discord. I'll be watching the market, pre-market, very, very closely. I'll be well aware of what happens this afternoon. I just won't be in front of my computer right when the close takes place and right when Nvidia starts sharing those numbers. So relax today. The futures are up right now on everything except for the Dow. But I don't think honestly, I don't think that's going to hold past the first 5 or 10 minutes of the market open. I think you're going to see all three indexes trade a little bit more to the downside. Hopefully not the big sell-offs like we've had the last few days, but I think a little bit to the downside because I think there's just so much fear over what the market reaction is going to be to the news on Nvidia. It's crazy, but that's it. Everything right now for the next 24 to 48 hours hinges on Nvidia and the jobs report tomorrow morning. So be prepared for it. Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.